I'm here today in Santa Barbara, California to look at the all-new 2025 Subaru Forester. Now we have not one but two different trims to look at. Over to my right here we have the Touring, and in a few minutes we'll get to look at the Sport. Now with an all-new Forester, Subaru said they wanted to keep everything that owners love and add to it. And I think when you look at this model through and through, they've done just that. Up at the front here, we see something different in the lighting. We've got a very thin main headlight. We also have a very well integrated fog light next to what seems to be a simple cutout, but I imagine is a built-in sensor. Now this hexagon pattern that you'll see there is going to be built into the rest of the vehicle as well. Another first for the Forester is the 19-inch wheels. Now the Touring model and the Sport, the two we have here to look at today, will feature this 19-inch wheel, but two different models and two different colors. With the overall profile of this Forester, what they've done is made everything a little bit boxier with stronger lines. And I see that definitely in the hood transition up to the roof, but also here in the back where things are just as flat as they ever were, but a little more sculpted than we found on the previous models. If you look back here in the D-pillar, you'll also notice that we've got a little accent piece that looks strangely familiar. Reminds me of something like the BMW. Now, is it even a Subaru if it doesn't have body cladding? But what you may notice here is that up in the very left corner, we have a little vent. And the whole point there is to release some of the air pressure that builds up around the front wheel. There's a lot of small changes they've made to refine this. Part of that's going to be ride, handling, cabin noise. But overall efficiency is something that Subaru wanted to focus on as well. And it's important when you make something a little bit boxier, a little bit wider, that you make those changes so that they can ultimately add up to something just a little bit more efficient. Up on the roof, we're going to see one of the two different roof rail options that are available. This is going to be the low profile, which you will find on the Sport as well as the Touring. There's also going to be a ladder style, which we're going to be a little bit more familiar with from other Subaru models that we'll see on the other trims like Base, Premium, and Limited. There's still a very nicely integrated rear spoiler, and for fans of practicality, which most Forester owners are, we do still find a rear windshield wiper. Continuing across the back, we're going to find the embossed Forester, and I know it may be hard to see, but we'll check it out on the other model as well. The Touring badge here, a little piece of chrome, but less chrome than we found on the outgoing Touring model. And what we will find is a single exhaust outlet here on the right. Over on the left, we just have a covered up cutout. Again, it is that hexagonal pattern, but I would prefer to see either a dual exhaust or even just an opening so that they're symmetrical. There's more to this rear bumper than may meet the eye. We do see the parking sensors as well as the tow hook recovery point, but under here, we are going to find the first for the Forester, a kick-activated tailgate. With the power hatch opened up, we'll find here in the rear the exceptionally wide opening that's been ever popular with the Forester. Now, a couple other things we have inside. Up here on the left, we have a couple mounting points, and these are different than you'd find in the current Foresters. These are going to be accessories that can be adjusted and purchased from the factory. You can add a few more components to this. If you want to insert the shelf option, you'll be able to do that. We haven't seen much more about that accessory catalog, but hopefully in the coming weeks and by the auto show, we'll have a little bit more idea of what we can do in the back of our Forester. Here in the rear seats, we're going to see a very similar door card to what we find in the front. A nice mix of the black and brown with the accented white stitching. Now the entire interior of this Forester feels a little bit more upscale as far as design goes, but it is still going to be in the more reasonably priced category. And I think including brown as one of those options was a great way to make that all come together. Here in the seats, we're going to have our 60/40 split as well as our folding cup holder. At the back, we'll have two vents as well as two USB options, one at USB-A, one USB-C, as well as on the Touring model, the outboard heated rear seats. On models with the sunroof, it's a very similar story to the previous generation of Forester, and that is to say a panoramic sunroof is not going to reach quite as far back as we'll find in a lot of the competition. Here on the inner door guard of the Touring model, we're going to see the multi-tone between the black, the brown, and the white accent stitching. We also have a number of materials here. You're going to get a typical plastic, the leather interior, as well as a suede or synthetic suede insert. Up here around the door handle, we'll also see the two-stage memory seating for the driver's seat, as well as your controls. Now these controls are in a very nice chrome. And again, with an effort to make this feel more upscale, I think Subaru's done a pretty good job. That topographical design we'll see played out here along the door sill, as well as the Harman Kardon speaker and your typical water bottle holder. Here on the driver's side of the vehicle, we're going to see the seats that have been redesigned to make it a little bit easier to reach around, not cover your blind spots quite as much. You'll notice that that brown interior is going to find its way mostly on the middle of the seat, with black being accented and the brown stitching going along the rest of the way. We also have in the seat a bit of a suede material that's going to be worked in along the side bolsters. And we do have the 10-way adjustable power seat that you will find in the driver's side, 8-way in the passenger side. One of the main upgrades to this interior is going to be the new 11.6-inch touchscreen display. Now this is going to be segmented, with the top going to be set up for your media and the bottom being set up for some physical controls that you'll notice are no longer laid out down here. What we do still find, however, is an auxiliary cable, a USB-C 3 amp and a USB-A 2.4 amp. Though you may not use those a whole lot because this is going to come standard, at least this particular trim, with wireless charging. We do still have an old school shifter, but you will still find manual available with the paddle shifter option in this particular trim. The rest of this center console is fairly straightforward. We have our park and surround view camera buttons. This armrest itself is really nicely appointed, but it's not necessarily the most comfortable. So for longer road trips, I think if you have bony elbows, this might become an issue down the road. Here along the steering wheel, we are going to see a number of the buttons we come to expect. Your track forward and back, source. We are going to find our hang up and pick up buttons, voice commands that are available through the multimedia entertainment center. The vehicles that do come available with the advanced cruise control feature, you'll see here your increase and decrease range accordingly, as well as your set speed. And what we love to see in a Subaru is a heated steering wheel. I mentioned that kick open rear trunk. We do have the ability to turn that on and off, as well as our hatch release, headlight adjustments, and a nicely stitched to-a-rain floor mat. Up along the top, we are going to see two different lights, as well as our sunglasses holder and the controls to our power moonroof. Now the model we have out here in the courtyard is our sport model, and one of the things Subaru has changed is they are no longer going with that orange color accent, but bronze instead. You're going to find those bronze accents here along the wheels, in the front of the vehicle, around that hexagonal pattern, and along the side edge here. It's going to run along where we used to have what looked more like body cladding, and now it looks like a bit of an ornament. It's not just the bronze that's new on the wheel, but we do have the same size 19-inch wheel that we find on the Touring. Now that's going to be the Sport and Touring that get these 19-inch wheels. I do think it adds to the upscale look that we get in the Forester. The taillights here are certainly a more compact design, and while they do stretch out a little bit here into the rear tailgate of the vehicle, I think it's a nice way to scale things up a bit and add a little bit more of a detail touch than we found on the previous Foresters. Not even on the Sport model do we get dual exhaust tips, but we do find that bronze accent around that exhaust over there, and we find the bronze around the plastic insert. On the interior here of the Sport, I do apologize for the lighting. Things are going to look very similar, but one thing that's missing is that premium feel that we got from that Touring. Now here in the back seat, there is quite a bit of room. You could fit 3 people here fairly easily, but what I am running into is a limitation on headspace. I am 6 feet tall. I do have a long torso for someone who's 6 feet tall, but I'm a little bit surprised there's not a little more. Now in the Touring model and in most models except for the base, you are going to get that sunroof. That sunroof is going to take away just a little bit of headroom, but I would say overall, especially for the size of vehicle, there's quite a bit of room back here. With the front seat set comfortably for my height, I do have quite a bit of leg room. We're probably looking at about 4 or 5 inches. This seat is reclined just a little bit from the last person who was in here. The floor is not entirely flat. We do have a hump here in the middle that is going to make it a little bit less comfortable if you're that person sitting in the third seat, but as you can see, there is plenty of room. Now here in the driver's seat, one thing I've noticed immediately is that this is a pretty comfortable seat, and it's one of the things that Subaru has worked on. Now previous models apparently had a little bit more in the shoulder, and that was getting in the way of people being able to turn around and reach to the back. It is a Subaru, you have to be able to pet the dog at the stoplight, but I think it's a very comfortable seating position, and if this is the upgrade, I would definitely take it. One of the things we didn't get a chance to test out today, but Subaru says is worth waiting for when we get home, is the insulation for the cabin. Now, the Subaru Forester is a practical machine, but we want it to be quiet and comfortable. They've stiffened the chassis, added some rigidity, and adjusted the handling to make it a little bit more comfortable. They've also added quite a bit of sound deadening material, especially within the roof, to make it a quieter cabin as well. From the driver's seat position, you can tell Subaru's made a concerted effort to improve the overall feel of this interior. Now, that's done with a couple things. The larger touchscreen is going to add a more premium feel, as well as, in theory, some more functionality. One of the things it does get rid of is going to be quite a few buttons down here. Now, it is going to be set up where you can do some of the controls normally done with buttons within that touchscreen, and it is going to be set up in that lower half to be able to do so. However, I'm not sure everyone is going to like that. This particular model does have the sunroof. It is still a manual shade, and as far as sunroofs go, it is not the largest. This is still considered and called a panoramic sunroof, but I'm not sure it totally qualifies. Let me know what you think the average size is of a panoramic sunroof, and if this Subaru, which reaches just behind the driver's side, has done a good job of that. If you always thought the Subaru Forester was nice, but not quite nice enough, this might be the one that changes your mind. Some of these changes have gone a long way to improve the overall aesthetics of the vehicle. The interior space has been refined. The technology that we find in the touchscreen has brought it a little more up to date with some of the other vehicles in its class. And if you're looking for a Subaru, this might be the one. Thanks so much for watching. Please feel free to share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Follow us on Threads, Facebook, Instagram, all those other social places, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.